So we are at a beautiful time in the market where there are a lot of challenges globally at macro level, politically, as well as in the world of business. So what are the investment trends and what's the impact it's having right now across the Web 2 and Web 3? This is something that a lot of startups are looking for, and we have some amazing panelists and guests here who are coming from a VC background, and their insights are going to be super helpful in guiding the direction. So before we get started, I'm just going to run through where you could give a quick introduction, and I'll start with myself. Let's keep it less than 30 seconds, and let's give them a perspective of where we come from and what our angle of approach towards the VC and investment landscape is. So I'm Key from Dubai, and I run an accelerator called Key Difference with a fund. And our focus is on Web3 investments, looking at fundamentally strong Web2 projects that are moving to the world of blockchain or the blockchain infrastructure and helping them by accelerating and investing in them to grow in the space. So I've been in the blockchain industry for the last 10 years, and I'm pretty thrilled to be part of this conversation today. So let's take turns.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alice Chen. I am the co-founder and general counsel for a platform called InvestX. It's Singapore-based and licensed. Basically, we have a tokenization SaaS platform which offers a one-stop shop for anyone who wants to tokenize, issue, trade, custodize, and also provide a liquidity solution for any tokenized real-world assets. We have a sister platform called iSwap, which is the world's first automated market maker for security tokens that is Bahamas-based and licensed. So we essentially offer the end-to-end solution for anyone who's looking to move their assets from Web 2 to Web 3.
Hi everyone, I'm John from ABCDE. So ABCDE is actually a crypto-native Web3 fund that focuses on early-stage projects in the Web3 space. So we typically look at pre-seed all the way up to pre-Series A projects. In terms of verticals, we are quite agnostic. So we do all kinds of deals ranging from gaming to DeFi, NFT, ZK, AA, so on and so forth. Our fund is based in Singapore, and we started deploying since last year, and to date we have done about 15 to 18 deals. Yeah.
Hi everyone, Vanessa here from Katha. So Katha is a US firm, and we help the startups with their equity management and the VCs with their fund administration. So with the startups, we help with your cap table, fundraising, and overall ESOP program and valuations. And then for the funds, we basically help with your LP management, capital calls, and the whole back office of a VC fund. So happy to help contribute here any of the investment, data and insights for Web3 and Web2 investments.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on this very early morning and showing up at 10:30 in the morning. As our moderator, Mr. Keys has initiated, we're living a really exciting time right now in Southeast Asia. I think predominantly this is one of the most emerging sector with regards to fintech, digital innovation, and what we can actually go ahead and propel. I am from the US, but I relocated over here in Thailand about 3 years ago, pre-COVID. But the company that we're representing right now is MCB, which stands for Multi-Currency Block. We're trying to bridge the capital between large investment from the standpoint that normally traditional investors or digital currency crypto investors are not available to this particular market. So we welcome everybody, and that's a short introduction about myself. Thank you, everyone.
Hello. Hi, I'm JP Kalma. I'm the founder of HomeCube. HomeCube is a Web3 startup trying to address home shortage. We believe in Web3 and decentralization. We believe that the future of the construction worker, if you create NFTs towards 3D printing, there will be homes for everyone. So I'm here I'm interested to appreciate how each society perceives decentralization. I think decentralization has so much promise beyond Web3, and I'm here to learn more than anything.
I think now you see what I meant by a full, strong panel. We have people from very diverse backgrounds, an accelerator and asset tokenization, a Web3 native fund, back office servers and data-centric for the VC, the bridge, and a founder. That's a good roundup of perspectives there. So let's get to it. What I'd like to know first from every one of you is to understand in short how and what trends are you seeing both from a Web 2 and Web 3 perspective in this Southeast Asian markets. So let's start with you.
Well, I think we've been in this space for quite a long time. We started in 2017, talked about asset tokenization then, not much interest. And I think, if you've been in the Web3 space long enough, there's been a lot of talk about real-world asset tokenization. That's been one of the trends we've been seeing pick up steam recently with, BlackRock and DBS, quite a few different banks, so large financial institutions actually implementing and trialing their own tokenization platforms and infrastructure. So with that in the backdrop, I think there's been greater adoption and acceptance. So even at Token 2049, which was heavily very crypto native in the past, there were a ton of events related to real world asset tokenization because it's tangible, it's relating to things that people can understand, things like real estate, tokenizing real estate. We have tokenizing tree plantations that have carbon credit reduction. And we have art tokenization, collectibles. We've even tokenized our own company, ESOPs. So something that Karta, I think, might be able to talk about as well. But it's something that I think generally the trend is all types of assets moving on-chain, including, and when we talk about tokenization, it includes tokenizing fiat cash. When you tokenize that, you have stablecoins, you have CBDCs, and what does that enable? It enables an entirely online, automated way of transacting and settling assets and transactions.
So if I understand right from what you said to summarize, the investment trend is not only growing with the VCs investing, but the whole world of billions of people could be investing as an individual themselves, and that is very powerful. That makes the investment size in the market that much bigger. It's unimaginable with the power of asset tokenization. That's a good point. Let's go on to the Web3 native.
Yeah, maybe I can add a few points from a VC perspective. So I think in the VC space, at least for this current bear market, for this year, I think the main narrative driving most of our investments right now is more on the ZK narrative. So I think there's been quite a few emergence of like ZK EVMs from Polygon, Scroll, Tyco, Aleo, some of these L2s. So I think the reason why ZK has been focused and looked into very deeply by most of the VCs right now is because I think we have reached a stage in crypto whereby scalability and interoperability has become a main issue. So if you really want to have mass adoption, drive users into the Web3 space, I think ZK right now is trying to resolve the issue of, one very simple thing is transaction fees, right? Even on Ethereum itself, fees have been going up at a super high rate. It's been very expensive for, firstly, users to actually use the chain itself, and secondly, for developers to actually develop good DApps that users will actually want to come in to actually use and adopt it. So I guess in the space right now, is what we are doing right now is we are really looking at the infra layer, because we believe that at a later stage, once we have the right infrastructure, then it makes it easy for developers to actually start building on it. Then from there, we can actually come up with good apps, and then from there, there'll be more mass adoption for crypto itself.
Well, ZK is a very, very strong narrative with tons of solutions for the problems that the world is facing right now. Probably not the problems of the corporations, but the problems of the real people. People, their data, and what they are looking for. And I think it can make a big difference in the upcoming days. So curious to hear your data-centric views.
Yeah, happy to share. I think Kata sits in a very interesting space because we have both the startups as our clients, and we have the funding information from them, and we also have the VC clients. So, of course, an honor to have Alice's company, InvestX, as a Kata client as well. So, with about 40,000 companies and 5,000 VC funds on the Kata platform, we had, the ability to help churn out insights, right, for the public. And with Web2 and Web3 investments and startup investments in general, it is quite seasonal. You will see ups and downs. There will be certain industries that will be, what we call really hot in that moment of time. So when we look at Web3, yeah, there has been an up and down. I think there was a very big growth in investment in 2022 and 2021. And as Jonathan mentioned, it's the best season right now. So the fundraising, climate is not great. But when we look at the data and the interest from the startups and VCs, it's very clear that Web3 is here to stay. There's still a lot of demand from Web3 investors. We still see Web3 and crypto VC funds coming up and raising new rounds of funding to deploy them. And then we also see startups fundraising. But one key area of difference that we've seen in the past few quarters is stricter due diligence from the VCs. So they're now asking for, specific Web3 valuations of startup companies. So it's not that, the market isn't great for crypto. It's just that the investors are getting, a lot more strict about their due diligence and who they're picking to invest.
That makes a lot of sense. It's something that goes with the market. That's perfect. So yes.
Yes, thank you for the remarks. Probably representing as the senior of all this distinguished panelists and the speakers over here. I'm 50 years old. I'm representing half a century. So from Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3, right? When it was really static from the initial time to Web 2, where it was really, it started emerging with Facebook, with even MySpace. Some of you guys are much younger, so I don't even know if you guys know those particular platforms. But Web3 is really where the ownership of the data, ownership of the finance, and ownership of everything that we're trying to go ahead and perform at this particular moment. So this represents something that is going to be challenging to this particular space. So it's one of which where I think really the representation is the ownership of the individual. And so this is what's going to be really coming out of the fintech space from the standpoint that the financial inclusive data, the data in itself is the ownership of the individual. So this is what's going to be really transformative in this particular era at this moment.
Well, being a founder, I think Web3 is more than just tokens and ownership for me. It's about the expansion of the concept of decentralization. In terms of investments, I think the term decentralization still be expanded because, for instance, talk about features. We know about permissionless, but there's new thing going on like zero knowledge proofs. There's lots of conversations there expanding the feature of being permissionless. And we hear conversations on CBCDs. Being in a free market economy, I think the government is also allowed to think of their own products to compete with tokens and have their own opinion on what a decentralized world will be. And of course, they're inspired by blockchain and digital currencies as well. And we hear ChatGPT, we all know that. And I think it's about the decentralization of knowledge. And all these decentralized ideas are still expanding, and then I think society is still getting around his head towards what the real impact on this. And I think that's a better explanation to the bear market rather than just looking at tokens values dropping and then suddenly scraps the entire Web3 space. So I choose to think it has a better, robust promise in the long term. So I'm here.
When, with what you said, I'm just curious to understand what is the societal impact that you foresee that has been driven from these investments?
So each society has their own, I think, relationships with their government. In a more Western setting, I think they perceive Web3 as more of a rebellion. And I think in the Asian context, they see Web3 as more of a cool, new, fresh utility. So in my take, I think Web3 the communities will have an easier time to climb the poverty trap. That's my main premise, because capital is more it's more accessible, technology is more ubiquitous, and they don't need monthlies from cloud servers. So I hope I answered your question well.
No, that makes sense. I read from a letter from a friend of mine that he believes venture capital is a force for good because where the money moves, the focus of the economy, the society moves. If there is an flourishing or abundant of money in a particular sector, more startups can start there. And if it is not, even in a beautiful sector, startups would struggle and they cannot make something progressive there. So I believe it's in the hands of the money managers or the VCs that they could change the trends, not just follow the trends. So what is your thought, especially because you said you were in the asset tokenization as early as 2017 to pursue the direction. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think just to even add on to all the comments here on the stage so far, there might be a distinction between East and West where East sees Web3 blockchain as an enabler as opposed to a rebellion. And a lot of discussion around financial inclusion, democratizing access, which is what our platform has been built upon. And we're quite excited about going back to what you said about VCs being able to help startups with ideas and innovative approaches to doing things in the Web 2 space and bringing them to the Web 3 space. We're still very early right now. A lot of the technology that you're investing in, the ZK proofs and all of that, these are to improve what exists today, but I don't think it'll be the final state of what we see in the Web 3 space. Just like internet, Web 2. But what we're really excited about is being at the forefront of laying the groundwork for that. And so we built IkeSwap, which is essentially a crowdfunding platform, but Web 3 based. There's no cash. It's purely cryptocurrencies or stablecoins, a digital asset transacting on the other side with another digital asset, which is a security token. No intermediaries, no banking required, and it allows retail access basically to support projects that they really believe in on our launchpad, right? So Web3 companies, even Web 2 companies, but they all have to be in token form. And it allows retail access to invest as little as $1. And that is centered around the theme and ethos of community building, which is, a lot of what Web3 is about.
That makes sense. Do you guys have any thoughts to share on the societal impact side and the VC as a force for good?
Yeah, I guess I'll share since I'm from a VC, right? I think there's always this running joke that in the bear market, all VCs are like, we all start to become smarter, we start to do stricter due diligence, because I think market is dry, so investment opportunities are a lot more tougher to come by, especially good projects. But in the bull market, we shall see, everyone starts to be stupid again. We just deploy as and when. But I think to add to your point about, VCs being the main drivers in the crypto or Web3 space right now, I think from a VC perspective, it should not just be about, just pouring in money into the space, but because most of the VCs, they are founded by founders who have, built successful projects, be it exchanges, infrastructure support companies, institutional trading companies. I think it's important from a VC's perspective to actually give support to the portcos that you actually invest in, do a lot of post-investment work. I think it's very dangerous for Web3 VCs to just think that, oh, okay, let's just throw like a bunch of money, throw $1, $2, and then, this becomes a unicorn. I think it's important that, especially since we are in the very nascent stage of crypto right now, that VCs actually show their support, be it through leveraging on our ecosystem or even giving founders, ideas, execution help, so on and so forth. So I think from a VC perspective, the responsibility for us not just lies in investing in good founders and projects, but also helping with their growth and development in this space. Yeah.
That makes sense, but one of the things that I find tricky with the ZK part of the investment is, as Vanessa mentioned, that there's more due diligence that's happening right now, but the Web3 projects, many of them, even those that don't use ZK, even the chains, layer ones, they are struggling to show users, they're struggling to bring real world traction to it, mostly because the many of the projects there are infrastructure, but then only if there is a Web3 application on top of it, that infrastructure becomes more interesting. And there is a gap between the ease of use and the users flowing in and etc. So when you're doing a due diligence on a project and investing, especially in ZK because it's much deeper in the tech stack, what do you look for? What are your expectations when you're analyzing them?
I think because we look at very early stage, like pre-seed up to like seed stage projects, typically these projects don't really have either a product that is live. So I think founder fit is very important to us as to whether it's the right founder for the right project, whether they are able to adapt to this ever-changing environment. That's one. I think another thing is we also are pretty technical team. So we also look very closely into technical DD rather than the other DD like the market size, the product, the monetization model. So I think when it comes to infra project, most of our DD really comes on the technical side of things. And I think to your point that whether the problem that most of them are facing is that they are unable to actually get developers on board to build, right? I think the issue with ZK is every layer is struggling with this is because of the difficulty of implementation. So that being said, we are actually, when we look at like ZK infra projects, we really want to look at founders who are actually not say educated, but are well versed enough in the space to be able to execute this implementation. Yeah.
That makes sense. So I have a question for you in terms of your clients that you're getting as a data trend. Since you work with all these back offices for venture capital firms and so on, what do you see from an asset tokenization standpoint? What is the ratio of clients who are coming and setting up something with you or taking your help that's focused on asset tokenization specifically? Do you have any data around that?
Sorry, the last part, focused on which part?
Asset tokenization.
Okay, understand. Yeah, so Katha is the back office for the VCs that work with us. When it comes to the asset tokenization and the VC firms that do that, there's still a smaller pie of these VCs compared to all the other VCs that we serve. So if you think about the VC space and the kind of industries or mandate that VCs focus on, there are VCs who do very early stage, like Jonathan does, and these are the VCs that are very crucial for startups to succeed because you need, investors who are willing to take the highest amount of risk and invest in a very early stage startup. So these founders have the funds to make their project successful and for the VCs to help drive that success. And then there are mid-stage, VCs, and there are VCs who come in pre-IPO, at the very late stage. So there are VCs that focus on different sizes, there are VCs that focus on different industries. And if you look at like the Web3 VCs or the VCs that focus on that, it's still a small pie in the overall, VC scene, but it's definitely a lot more than say 5 years ago. So we see a growth there, which is why we've had a crypto fund admin team. We've had improvements in the valuations for our Web3 clients across both startups and VCs. But it's a small but growing pie.
That's interesting. That's good. I think sustainable trends sometimes take much longer to be created because asset tokenization, again, is not something that you can pull out of thin air, right? You need real assets, and there are a lot of legal and regulatory challenges to be able to take steps on that. So from a bridge standpoint, since you see both sides from the middle, I would like to understand how you foresee this opportunities change, let's say, in the next 12 months. What are the primary factors that could affect it positively or negatively?
Yeah, we're still waiting to see what the startup fundraising trend will be like. So since 2021, in 2021, there was a lot of funding raised in total value, and there were a lot of funding rounds. In 2022, that was a sharp decline, and it's gone back to like 2018 kind of funding rounds and funding value. For the first time since Q3 2022, we are seeing a small uptick in the total amount of funding raised for Q2 2023. So we're waiting to see if that will be a trend that goes up. So then it means that we're finally done with the bear market and we can reach a bit more stability and understanding of the VC and the startup funding landscape. So we're still holding our breaths, but that small uptick is great. And we'll wait for Q3 and also Q4 data results. Then we'll be able to understand where we're heading to in terms of the funding landscape for the startups.
That's perfect. As a founder, how do you see things working between this challenging environment? Because the uptick is right now that she's mentioning is an uptick for the VCs raising money from the LPs. It's not the money that is necessarily deployed. So there is still a gap between when the VCs raise and when they deploy. That would make the life of a lot of founders extremely hard in this market. So how do you see this situation from your eyes?
Well, up to today, I'm just using my own money. Well, my perspective, if traction is too fast, it might peak too early, and if it's not sustainable, the confidence, usually the hype will die down, and it's dangerous to have traction too fast, because if it's too fast, probably for me it's lame. Anyway, that's only my opinion. Yeah.
That makes sense. And guys, since there are a few VCs on the stage as well, if you ever have any questions, feel free to raise your hands and we can address those questions as well. But let me get on to the regional part, geographical parts. I know that people here are coming from different countries and regions. So how do you see the investment trends change by the region? Is there a specific region where you see more uptake and other regions not? Why don't we start from you on the spot?
Yeah, I was having a chat yesterday with a few of the speakers, and I think there is some difference in terms of need as well. In Asia, in terms of our solutions, it's so varied and they're very diverse in terms of geography, and so payments has been a very strong area and sector for, I think, Asian-based VCs, whereas that may not be as much of an issue, let's say, in the U.S., where there's a lot of domestic transfers. There isn't, cross-border transfers as much going on. And so that, obviously has been a trend. But I also think it comes down to also what you can actually do and feel. A lot of what we talk about in Web3, for a lot of people, are intangible. They can't see it. They can't really actually use it. If anyone's actually tried to invest or hold tokens or acquire, stable coins, it requires a little bit of a process, right? But so tech-savvier regions, maybe regions that didn't have legacy infrastructure, might adopt Web3 even faster. So some trends that we see in our own company, Philippines is a big user of tokens, right, and digital assets. We've also seen countries in Africa being a huge uptake, right? So we think that might be related to the fact that there isn't legacy infrastructure, and there's also a lot of monetary controls and other things that are in the play. But coming back down to overall larger themes, AI has been a large theme, especially with ChatGPT being able to actually put it in the user's hand, even though it's been in development for 7 years, but no one could really use AI until ChatGPT came around. And so I think that trend will be similar for Web3 builders like ourselves. When we can actually put our products directly in the user's hand, there'll probably be quicker uptake.
That's, I think that makes a big difference if people can use it, feel it, and resonate with it.
Well,
Yeah.
like right now, I think there's still, the interoperability issue is a massive issue in the Web3 space, right? If you have integrated with a certain chain, it's not compatible with other platforms who have not integrated. So we've actually integrated with 5 public protocols, Tezos, Algorand, Hedera Hashgraph, but they all have their own wallet systems, right? And so there are people building infrastructure that's allowing users to be easily able to access all types of wallets and applications. Wallet Connect, for example, if you have that on your platform, it allows you to access.
You can basically scroll through 100 wallet to find your wallet.
Yeah.
Okay. So as a Web3 native fund, does region matter at all, or do you see anything specific to region when you're investing, either from the founder side or from the industries or the sector that they're addressing, like in African markets?
Yeah, maybe I'll just touch more on the user perspective. I think if we just look at Asia itself, right, there's definitely a huge different mindset in terms of users. I think it really boils down to the environment that they are in. Like for example, if you look at Korea, Korea, the strength of the country is it has one of the strongest retail market. If you look at the trading volume for derivative trading on on Bybit, Korea comes up number 1. Upbit, their revenues are like hundreds of millions in Korea itself. So from Korea's perspective, the users are mainly degens, they like to gamble, which is why exchange actually is one of the more popular platform for most of their users to use. And if you look at other developing countries like Singapore, I think payments is a trend for us. If you look at more of the underdeveloped countries, so a lot of them actually like to hold digital assets. So the reason being is, of course, because of the environment that they are in, because of their banking system, their financial institutions. Their fiat currency itself is actually less stable than stablecoins itself. So that's why you see a lot of users from like underdeveloping countries moving towards stables. If you look at countries like Vietnam, Philippines, gaming is a huge thing for them, because the reason why is because the wages there are so low, right? That all of a sudden, playing, Web3 games can all of a sudden become an additional source of income, or if not, a replaceable source of income for them. So I think end of the day, yes, for us, when we look into projects they want to invest in, which region do they target and whether it's the right region to actually go into makes a lot of difference for us, because end of the day, that's dependent on, that's in a way is what really drives the success of the project, right? How much users they can get on board and whether they are actually targeting the right market. Yeah.
Perfect. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so investment trends, we always look at it in 2 sectors or 2 frames of mind. The first is regional and global, and then the second part is the sector-wise. So when we looked into the data, for private market investments, Asia is actually very resilient. So globally, when we have the funding bear market, US is badly affected, Europe is badly affected, Asia is the least affected of all these global markets. So that's great news for the startups and the VCs. And in fact, Southeast Asia shows very promising signs. It's actually the least affected regional area for VC funding and for startups. And then on the sector-wise, now that's a bit tricky. It has differed quite a lot by the country. So even in Southeast Asia, there are some investors in certain countries who prefer traditional investments, which would be healthcare, education, the more traditional businesses, as well as infrastructure. But there are also, pockets of investors in certain countries in Southeast Asia that care a lot more about innovative, technology, Web3, blockchain, and they're big and the investors who are big on these. So, that's a trend that we see, but it's really specific to the country for these sectors. But Southeast Asia and Asia on a private funding landscape is doing a lot better than the rest of the world.
Hey, that's a win.
I feel like a lot of that comes down to what the government supports as well, right? And the regulation that supports, like Singapore has a very progressive and supportive framework for digital assets, and certain other regions as well coming out with their own regulations that are supportive. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So the country, government's stance on these plays a very big role. There are certain countries in Asia that has a specific mandate whereby if a private investor makes an investment in this sector, the government will top it up 1-for-1 and match that scheme. So definitely the government actually plays a very strong hand and role in helping to drive the investment in certain sectors and in certain areas.
That makes sense. So let's continue with you on the sector and the regional preferences.
Yes, certainly. From our distinguished panel, such as Alice, Vanessa, I grew up in the U.S., and so I am originally from California. But knowing that the regulatory framework from the standpoint of how to capitalize, how to invest into something that is in emerging new disruptive technology, it's not necessarily do we have to silo and distinguish it between crypto or regulatory banking from that perspective. Here in Thailand, I believe there's over 70% to 80% that are on digital banking. We can go ahead and do a peer-to-peer payment transfer from myself to JP very, very instantaneously. In the US, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, unfortunately, we still don't have those particular options, right? So it doesn't matter if it's crypto, it's digital banking, it's financing, but really opening up what blockchain is here to really offer is the transparency, the peer-to-peer network, and really the instantaneous ability for us to go ahead and transact. So being that we're here in Thailand and the architecture and the framework of why we're all here is Asia FinTech, right? From a financial technology standpoint of view, we have to make it more simpler to the regular person, the average Joe, the average Sally, right? So if we can go ahead and have, as what Alice had mentioned, is the interoperability. How do we make it much more simpler for the average person to go ahead and transact and utilize this particular technology?
Perfect. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, with all these complexities, I think it's important to put the agility aspect into the product itself. Like, I have a marketplace, I'm using USDC, USDT, but I also have fiat checkouts. So it can navigate through different geographies with less complexities if you put agility into the product itself.
I think we are coming to the end of this amazing panel discussion, and I think the insights shared here are quite interesting, from how the funds are flowing and the challenges that the VCs are facing and the startups are facing in this market, but the confidence that the VCs have in certain sectors like asset tokenization and ZK and so on, and the impact that it is going to make in the upcoming days. And I think everyone is in a consensus that the moment users can start using it, if it's easy enough for them to use it, and as the market changes, there is no doubt that the Web3 and the rest of the startup world will go back. It has gone up and down for a gazillion times in the history of the investment space. So everything is cyclical, and we are excited to ride the cycle and have fun with the process, I guess. So super thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for everyone's contribution. And you can connect with all the guests in their LinkedIns and reach out for any further questions that you guys might have. Thank you so much, and see you guys in some other country sometime.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have a big photo session, please? เรียนเชิญช่างภาพเลยนะคะ ถ่ายภาพเป็นที่ระลึกกันนะคะ